Kash Patel stepped onto the view not with caution, but with the cold confidence of someone used to standing in the eye of the storm. A former national security advisor and author of the Nunes memo that once rocked Washington, Patel, now seen by supporters as a fearless truth-teller, has become a symbol of disruption. To his critics, he's a quiet threat, precise and ready to challenge long-standing norms. That day, The View wasn't just a talk show, it was a carefully staged battleground. In the control room, a director muttered, "Let him expose himself." On stage, the hosts stood like seasoned warriors. Whoopi Goldberg calm and sharp, Joy Behar smiling with hidden edge, and Sonny Hostin poised like a bowstring pulled tight. The atmosphere was electric. The audience didn't clap, they just watched. They weren't sure if they were about to see a standard interview or a live televised takedown. Then he stepped out in a deep blue suit and plain tie, confident yet unassuming like a lawyer walking into a trial he'd already mastered. Kash Patel nodded to the audience, his calm gaze scanning the room with unsettling ease as a few cautious claps met murmurs of doubt. Trump's guy had arrived. Joy smirked. Whoopi didn't hide her exhaustion, and the hosts believed they were in control, convinced they had set the perfect trap. But within minutes, Patel delivered a single, precise line, not angry, just chillingly calm, that unraveled their entire setup. For the first time in years, The View lost its grip on the narrative, right on the stage they thought was theirs. Before the moment hit, Whoopi, warm but sharp, welcomed the audience. "Welcome to The View. Today is going to be a conversation I know no one wants to miss. Comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. And please give a round of applause for our special guest, FBI Director, former National Security Advisor, and author of Government Gangsters, Mr. Kash Patel." The audience clapped, steady but subdued, with murmurs and cautious glances hinting that not everyone was there in agreement. Patel gave a slight nod, a faint smile flickering across his face, but his eyes stayed sharp and focused. In a calm, steady voice, he said, "Thank you for having me. I'm ready for a candid conversation today." Just a few seconds passed, but the room seemed to hold its breath, not because of what he said, but how he said it. There was no defensiveness, no forced humility. Patel didn't arrive as a guest. He came as someone ready to rewrite the script. Whoopi leaned in, her tone shifting serious. "Kash, you've stirred controversy by talking about prosecuting journalists for what you call misinformation in elections. Do you really think putting reporters on trial will solve the problem? Or is this just a way to silence dissenting voices?" The question hit like an opening shot, and the audience fell silent, waiting. Patel stayed calm, leaning forward, eyes locked on Whoopi. Prosecution isn't about silencing voices. It's about protecting the truth. When a media outlet deliberately spreads false information that undermines trust in elections or manipulates voters, that's no longer journalism. That's harm. My job is to enforce the law no matter who's involved. Sonny Hostin, sharp and quick, countered, "But Mr. Patel, who decides what's false? You as FBI director? That sounds like a dangerous step toward controlling the press, and the First Amendment doesn't support that." Patel nodded, unflinching. "I agree. The First Amendment is foundational, but it doesn't protect fraud. If a media outlet fabricates evidence to smear someone or create chaos, that's criminal, not free speech. I'm talking about illegal actions, not opinions or articles." A few scattered claps broke the tension, but Joy Behar couldn't hold back, cutting in with a sardonic smile. "You talk about the law, but it sounds like you want to turn the FBI into a media police, jailing anyone who dares to criticize the administration. What kind of justice is that?" Patel turned to Joy, his gaze calm but as sharp as a blade. "Miss Behar, I'm not targeting critics. Criticism is the heart of democracy. But when someone uses media power to fabricate, manipulate, or undermine elections, they must be held accountable. Justice doesn't pick sides, and neither do I." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, some nodding, others shaking their heads in doubt. Ana Navarro spoke up with a pointed tone. You sound reasonable. But how can we trust you'll be impartial? You're Trump's guy. You work for Truth Social. Will the FBI go after anti-Trump outlets first? Patel gave a faint smile, not to appease but to maintain his calm. Miss Navarro, the FBI isn't my tool or anyone else's. Every prosecution will be based on evidence, follow legal processes, and be reviewed by courts. I don't have an enemies list, only the law. Alyssa Farah Griffin, bringing her experience as a former Trump official, added with a balanced but sharp voice. Kash, I understand accountability, but talking about prosecuting journalists scares people. Don't you think your words are hurting? Trust in the FBI. Patel looked at Alyssa, his voice low but compelling. I understand that fear and I don't want to cause panic. But trust in the FBI isn't built by avoiding tough questions when the media is accused of manipulation. We have to ask questions. Genuine journalism, those who seek the truth, is a national asset. But those who abuse that power to deceive are a threat. Suddenly, a burst of applause erupted from the audience, louder than expected, catching the producers off guard. The camera quickly scanned the crowd, but the director signaled not to zoom in. Sonny pressed on, sensing the mood. He shift. You talk about truth, but you once supported ideas like Italy's. How can we trust you as a guardian of truth? Patel remained calm. Miss Hostin, I'm not here to debate old allegations. I'm here to talk accountability. If there's evidence a media outlet breaks the law, I will act. No evidence, no prosecution. Clear and transparent. The applause grew louder and more persistent. Some stood in the back rows, shouting, Keep going, Kash. Joy Behar faltered, shuffling her notes, eyes darting uneasily around the room. Beside her, Whoopi leaned forward, seeming ready to intervene, but the applause made it clear the audience was firmly on Patel's side. Patel didn't need to seize the moment. He simply sat calm, as if in his own office, hands resting lightly on the armrests, his gaze scanning each host like a chess player waiting quietly for an opponent's mistake. The hosts whispered among themselves, their usual confidence fading. They expected Patel to stumble on the topic of prosecuting the media, but instead, he flipped the room in his favor. Then Alyssa Farah Griffin, the only host with Trump administration experience, spoke up sharply. Kash, you were a close advisor to President Trump, behind the Nunes memo and involved with Truth Social. How can the public trust that as FBI director? You'll act independently and not just carry out Trump's will? The audience fell silent, waiting for Patel's response. He leaned in, eyes focused, voice low but firm. Miss Griffin, I don't deny my ties to President Trump, but the FBI isn't a tool for any individual, including him. My job is to protect national security and serve the American people, not party or a person. Joy Behar quickly cut in, dripping with sarcasm. Oh, really? You wrote a children's book calling Trump King Donald. That's blind loyalty, not serving the country. You expect us to believe you're impartial? Patel smiled, not to diffuse, but to stand his ground. Miss Behar, the children's book was a fun story, not policy. But if we're talking loyalty, I'm loyal to the Constitution first, Patel replied firmly. I worked with Trump because I believed in his agenda, protecting American interests and fighting corruption. That doesn't make me any less independent. The audience reacted with mixed applause and skeptical headshakes. Anna Navarro pressed on sharply, but Mr. Patel, you advised Trump Media, a company amplifying his message. How can your FBI avoid becoming an extension of Truth Social, targeting political opponents? Patel met her gaze steadily. Miss Navarro, my past doesn't define the FBI's future. I left Trump Media to focus on national security. The FBI acts on evidence and the law, not tweets or posts. If a political opponent breaks the law, they'll be investigated, no matter who they support. The applause grew louder, some standing. Sonny Hostin, sensing the momentum, fired back. You talk a good game, but you once called FBI officials gangsters for investigating Trump. That's not defending the law. That's defending Trump. Will you apologize for those words? Patel took a steady breath, his voice calm. Miss Host, I stand by every word. When some FBI officials misuse their power to target a presidential candidate without solid evidence, that's misconduct. I'm not defending Trump because he's Trump. I'm defending every American's right to fair treatment under the law. A louder wave of applause and cheers rose from the audience, the camera capturing nodding faces. Whoopi, noticing the crowd leaning toward Patel, tried to regain control. Clear and transparent. The applause grew louder and more persistent. Some stood in the back rows shouting, "Keep going, Kash!" Joy Behar faltered, shuffling her notes, eyes darting uneasily around the room. Beside her, Whoopi leaned forward, seeming ready to intervene, but the applause made it clear the audience was firmly on Patel's side. Patel didn't need to seize the moment. He simply sat calm, as if in his own office, hands resting lightly on the armrests, his gaze scanning each host like a chess player waiting quietly for an opponent's mistake. The hosts whispered among themselves, their usual confidence fading. They expected Patel to stumble on the topic of prosecuting the media, but instead, he flipped the room in his favor. Then Alyssa Farah Griffin, the only host with Trump administration experience, spoke up sharply. "Kash, you were a close advisor to President Trump, behind the Nunes memo and involved with Truth Social. How can the public trust that, as FBI director, you'll act independently and not just carry out Trump's will?" The audience fell silent, waiting for Patel's response. He leaned in, eyes focused, voice low but firm. "Miss Griffin, I don't deny my ties to President Trump, but the FBI isn't a tool for any individual, including him. My job is to protect national security and serve the American people, not a party or a person." Joy Behar quickly cut in, dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, really? You wrote a children's book calling Trump King Donald. That's blind loyalty, not serving the country. You expect us to believe you're impartial?" Patel smiled, not to diffuse, but to stand his ground. "Miss Behar, the children's book was a fun story, not policy. But if we're talking loyalty, I'm loyal to the Constitution first," Patel replied firmly. "I worked with Trump because I believed in his agenda, protecting American interests and fighting corruption. That doesn't make me any less independent." The audience reacted with mixed applause and skeptical headshakes. Ana Navarro pressed on sharply. "But Mr. Patel, you advised Trump Media, a company amplifying his message. How can your FBI avoid becoming an extension of Truth Social, targeting political opponents?" Patel met her gaze steadily. "Miss Navarro, my past doesn't define the FBI's future. I left Trump Media to focus on national security. The FBI acts on evidence and the law, not tweets or posts. If a political opponent breaks the law, they'll be investigated, no matter who they support." The applause grew louder, some standing. Sonny Hostin, sensing the momentum, fired back. "You talk a good game, but you once called FBI officials gangsters for investigating Trump. That's not defending the law. That's defending Trump. Will you apologize for those words?" Patel took a steady breath, his voice calm. "Miss Host, I stand by every word. When some FBI officials misuse their power to target a presidential candidate without solid evidence, that's misconduct. I'm not defending Trump because he's Trump. I'm defending every American's right to fair treatment under the law." A louder wave of applause and cheers rose from the audience, the camera capturing nodding faces. Whoopi, noticing the crowd leaning toward Patel, tried to regain control. When an agency with the nation's greatest power is accused of using that power for partisan gain, failing to act isn't neutrality, it's negligence. Closing headquarters isn't about destroying the FBI. It's a symbol that the days of cover-ups, favoritism, and unchecked abuse are over. You can't rebuild trust by preserving a broken foundation. His words landed hard, followed by a pause, then steady applause, not wild but deliberate, cutting through the tension. Sonny, refusing to let him off easy, pushed back. "A symbol? Sounds more like you want to gut the FBI. Purging the deep state, that means firing anyone who doesn't back Trump, right?" Patel's gaze didn't waver. "Miss Hostin, The deep state isn't a list, it's a system. Reform means ensuring every FBI employee serves the people, not politics. Firings only happen with proof of misconduct. Otherwise, I need those people to help rebuild public trust. A few claps followed, joined by murmurs of agreement. Joy Behar jumped in, her tone sharp. You talk about trust, but you've called FBI officials gangsters just for doing their jobs. That's not reform, you're tearing down the very agency you lead. Patel stayed composed. Miss Behar, I call misconduct what it is, regardless of who does it. If any FBI official abuses their power to target someone, Trump or anyone else, that's a betrayal of justice. Reform isn't destruction, it's protection. Applause erupted, stronger this time, with some audience members rising to their feet cheering. Anna Navarro, not ready to let Patel gain momentum, challenged him sharply. But Mr. Patel, closing the FBI headquarters, a symbol of American law enforcement, is extreme. Don't you think that destroys public trust more than it builds it? Patel met her gaze steadily. Miss Navarro, sometimes you have to dismantle outdated symbols to create something better. That building carries the name of J. Edgar Hoover, a man who misused power for decades. Moving the FBI's base says we're putting people above the past. Trust doesn't come from bricks. It comes from action. Alyssa Farah Griffin stayed composed, though her expression showed doubt. Leaning in, her voice smooth but pointed, she asked, Kash, I get your push for change, but sweeping reforms can't be imposed. They need consensus. How will you convince Americans you're not politicizing the FBI? Patel looked directly at her, calm and firm. Miss Griffin, I don't win consensus by pandering. I earn it through transparency. Every change I make will be rooted in evidence and monitored by independent oversight. If people see the FBI upholding law over politics, they'll trust it, regardless of how they feel about me. Applause swelled again, louder and longer, with voices from the audience calling, Keep going, Kash, me. I need them to follow the law, Patel said, his tone steady and unshaken. Disagreement isn't disloyalty. But if any agent actively undermines lawful reforms or refuses to uphold their duty, they'll be held accountable. Reform doesn't mean purging dissent. It means restoring integrity. The room leaned in as his words landed, sharp and deliberate. Whoopi Goldberg, sensing the momentum slip further, had tried to redirect the conversation, but Patel's response had only strengthened his standing. The applause returned, rippling through the audience with growing force. From the back, someone yelled, That's leadership! And for a moment, the studio no longer belonged to the hosts. It belonged to Kash Patel. I don't want an FBI that serves a president. I want one that serves the Constitution, Patel said, his voice cutting. Clean through the noise. If I ever turn this agency into a weapon for any political agenda, I'd be no better than what I've fought against. My mission is simple, equal justice, no matter who's in power. No fear, no favor. The room surged with energy. Standing. Ovations, cheers echoing from wall to wall. Even the host sat still for a beat, caught in the moment. In the control room, no one called for a cut now. The cameras stayed rolling. Because for better or worse, history was unfolding. And Kash Patel was commanding every frame. I'm defending the idea that no one, no matter how powerful or protected, gets to twist the truth without consequence, Patel said, his voice unwavering. Disagreement is democracy, but deception, that's the real threat. My fight isn't against opinions. It's against corruption that hides behind them. The applause erupted once more, thunderous and sustained. Whoopi sat back, momentarily quieted. Joy glanced at her notes, searching for a way back in. But the studio belonged to Patel now, his calm conviction cutting through every challenge, turning scrutiny into momentum. I'm not here to target anyone. I'm here to uphold the law, Patel said calmly, his voice cutting through the silence. Words like purge and prosecute only scare those who fear accountability. If you're honest, if you follow the law, you have nothing to worry about. But if you abuse power, no matter your party or platform, you'll be held accountable. The audience roared again, applause erupting like a wave. Even some skeptical faces began to soften. Patel sat steady, unmoved by praise or pressure, his message landing with unmistakable clarity. Justice wasn't partisan, it was personal. "I'm here to do what's right, not what's easy," Patel said, his tone unwavering. "Every reform will be transparent. Every investigation backed by evidence, all open to public scrutiny. If anyone thinks I'm playing politics, let my record speak for itself." The crowd erupted. Applause thundered through the studio, nearly everyone. On their feet, some whistling, others chanting his name. Sensing the momentum slipping, Sunny made one last attempt, her voice sharp with urgency. "So, do you admit your ties, from QAnon to FBI reform, have damaged public trust?" Patel didn't flinch. "Miss Host," he replied, clear and controlled. "Trust doesn't die from questions. It dies from secrecy. I don't divide, I reveal. And if that truth rattles people, they should ask themselves, are they afraid of truth or of losing power?" The studio exploded. Applause, cheers, shouts echoed. At the host table, faces shifted. Whoopi adjusted her hair, Sunny bit her lip, Joy tossed her notes aside, and Anna and Alyssa whispered anxiously. They'd expected to break Patel. Instead, he turned their final question into his final triumph, leaving. The audience firmly in his corner, the hosts, his expression composed and steady. The studio buzzed with lingering energy. Applause still fading, but the impact clear. Patel hadn't just answered questions, he'd shifted the room. His presence was no longer that of a guest under fire, but of someone who had met the storm, head-on, and reshaped it. Viewers and panelists alike felt it. This wasn't the takedown they expected. The control room remained quiet, the crew absorbing what had just unfolded. Whoopi, regaining her composure, closed the segment with a polite but cautious tone. "Thank you again, Mr. Patel, for being here. Today was memorable." Patel gave a respectful nod, then walked off stage without fanfare. No triumph, no swagger. Just a man who had said his truth and left the rest to the audience. The panel. He didn't need to say more. His silence amid the noise spoke louder than any argument. The applause swelled again, not as debate, but as a moment of closure. Unexpected, uncontrollable. The cameras slowly pulled back as the show's theme music faded in, and text appeared on screen. "The View will return next week." Yet, in the hearts of the studio audience and millions watching at home, one line echoed clearly. If the truth makes someone uncomfortable, they should ask themselves, are they afraid of the truth or afraid of losing power? In that moment, it became clear. Whether supporter or critic, no one doubted Kash Patel hadn't come to The View for a simple interview. He came to change the game. The studio quieted gradually, but the charged energy remained. A reminder that one person with sincerity and courage can shift the entire narrative. Patel didn't just leave the stage. He left behind a studio in chaos, an electrified audience, and a message that would not be forgotten. As the auditorium dimmed, the aftershock of his words rippled like a hidden current, his declaration still resonating. When media and officials crown themselves arbiters of justice, they steal the people's voice. Patel's words didn't just shake the studio, they exploded outward, spreading across phone screens and social media. As the show ended and the audience left their seats, the story was just beginning. Within hours, the hashtag #CashOnTheView soared to the top of the trends, clips from the episode spreading at lightning speed. One short segment, Patel delivering. His powerful line with the audience rising in support, racked up millions of views. By nightfall, users shared raw reactions. One wrote, "I don't support Trump, but Patel's right. The media can't play God with justice." Another replied, "He's a danger, masking political ambition with fancy words." Divisive as it was, no one could deny the moment's magnetic pull. Online forums buzzed with debate. Patel's supporters hailed him as a warrior fighting a biased media machine, while critics warned of FBI politicization and populism. Yet even detractors admitted Patel owned the stage, turning hosts like Whoopi and Sunny into reluctant witnesses to his performance. The press quickly jumped in, dissecting every second, from Patel's calm stare to Joy Bahar's visible discomfort. One bold headline summed it up: Patel turns the view into a battlefield. Audience sides with him. Another, from a critical angle, declared, FBI director shocks with dangerous message. Yet everyone agreed Patel's words sparked a larger conversation about the media's role, the power of officials, and the voice of the people. Meanwhile, the view fell into an uneasy silence. The show's official account posted a brief thank you to Patel for a lively discussion, but it was quickly drowned out by thousands of comments, from his supporters praising him to critics accusing the hosts of losing control. An insider revealed Joy Behar left the studio visibly frustrated, muttering to an assistant that Patel was too slick. Sunny remained silent, declining any post-show interviews. Whoopi, the most experienced, was overheard telling a colleague, "We underestimated him." Patel, however, chose silence amid the uproar. No interviews, no social media posts, no comments. He returned to his FBI duties, letting his words speak for themselves. Ironically, that silence only amplified his message. It wasn't just a TV moment. It was proof that one person with sincerity and courage can challenge an entire system. In a world overwhelmed by noise and shouting matches, Patel chose to speak sparingly, speak truthfully, and let the truth find its way. His words didn't settle every argument, but they left an undeniable mark. They opened a door for dialogue, for questioning, and for the belief that the people's voice still matters. As the studio lights dimmed, Patel's story kept shining, not because he was perfect, but because he had the courage to face a hostile room and say what many felt, but dared not speak aloud. In that moment, he proved that one sincere statement can shake a nation. The story of Kash Patel on The View, with his pivotal line, "When media and officials crown themselves arbiters of justice, they steal the people's voice," captures the deep polarization and distrust in media and institutions in today's America. In the politically charged atmosphere of 2025, amid fierce debates over free speech, the FBI's role, and media influence, this moment shows how one individual, despite attacks, gained support through sincerity and sharp reasoning. Details like the audience standing to cheer, while hosts showed discomfort, and the viral hashtag #KashOnTheView spreading online reveal the power of speaking truth clearly, even in the face of hostility. Patel's silence after the show, allowing his words to resonate on their own, reminds us that actions can speak louder than endless arguments. The lesson here is clear. In a divided society shaped by media and social platforms, each person must learn to speak with honesty and respect for truth, rather than just following the crowd or avoiding debate. Take inspiration from Patel's courage to face criticism, like when he responded to QAnon accusations by emphasizing dialogue. Don't let fear of labels stop you from questioning, just like the audience who applauded Patel's boldness. Finally, act like Patel after the spotlight fades. Let your words and actions prove their worth in real life, not just online. Engage in honest conversations, listen to opposing views, and stand firm in your beliefs, even if you stand alone. Subscribe to the channel to catch more authentic moments like Kash Patel's journey on The View. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next inspiring episode.